Have you worked with Dana at all yet in a managerial role?
Not yet, and I'm excited to do it. I think we can come with no button heads at all. I think we can make the right sense, and I say build the right fighters at the right time. And that's all it is, The past is the past, the future is the future, and I'm willing to work forward and make the great things happen for some of the fighters. And I think the stuff that I've gone through my career, I hope it doesn't really play into the futures of all the guys who I sign, which I know it won't. I'm not going to be ignorant. I'm not going to be standing my ground as I did my whole career. I'm not going to do that. I've already done that. I'm going to make the right decisions for my fighters. And the only way that negotiations will come about if they've done something outside of the cage or outside of the fight career to make their name well known. And that's what I'm going to make happen.
Before you mentioned how smooth-talking wrestlers and boxers make millions of dollars, is it one of your goals to kind of break the salary cap or the salary norm in mixed martial arts so that fighters can get paid $20 million a fight like Floyd Mayweather does for some of his bouts?
I hope so. I think that's just one of those things that I got to show that a fighter's worth his money before I can get that money. I was one of the fighters to really break the norm. I was one of the fighters to push the envelope on a lot of situations. I don't want to sound conceited, but it wasn't for me. A lot of these fighters would be making the millions they do. I've stood my ground for pay-per-view and for things like that. But at the same time, I really look at it as if a fighter's going to make more money, they got to show why they're worth that money. You have a lot of fighters who are champions, and former champions recently, that don't do interviews. They won't do interviews. They won't do face-to-face before the fights. They won't do a lot of things to promote the fight, and which I find it very ignorant and very stupid, because why would you miss the biggest promotion stage in the world, and that's UFC, to give you that opportunity to not do those things? I don't understand it. I'm going to make it a lot easier for fighters to deal with promotions to promote their event. I've done it so many years, time and time again, no matter how bad they talked about me. I went out there and I pushed the envelope. I made I made fans want to watch the fight no matter what. Either they love me, they hate me, they still talked about me, and they still watched. So I want to bring that same aspect to the fight game for a lot of these young guys that are coming up. That's what makes the difference for sure.
And as far as the guys that are making the millions right now, do you think that they are getting compensated fairly for what they're bringing to the table? Do you think that
100%.
The pay scale it's where it should be right now?
Yes, 100%. Because a lot of these fighters ain't doing anything outside the box. None of these guys are doing mainstream media. They're not doing a reality show or something like The Apprentice or something to think outside of the box. All they're thinking about is just fighting. That's all they care about. That's all they'll do is just fighting stuff. I look and there's a few guys who do things that are on Fox, yes, but at the same time you got to think outside of the fight game, where you're a household name, and that's what I try to do. I did The Apprentice. That's something that I did that I thought outside the box. When I did professional wrestling, I was never going to compete in wrestling, but to bring that audience over to mixed martial art was my goal, and I think I achieved that. And the same thing goes with Apprentice. There was ages from 40 to 60 that never watched MMA before. And all of a sudden, I'm walking through airports, and older ladies are coming through like, Tito, I've never watched MMA, but I watched you, and I really like you. I watched you on The Apprentice, and I think you're a great guy. And things like that is just, it's amazing to see how the sport is just so new to a lot of people. It hasn't even meet the crust where it's seen across the United States as a normalcy yet. And it's still got to break that forehold of mainstream media. And it's there, but it's still not there because of the fighters. UFC and Dana has pressed it as much as possible on each and every guy, Johnny Bones Jones. It's all the guys that are up and coming, but they don't see the light. They need to see the light, and I think someone like me is able to show these guys the right light.
What did you think of Rampage and all the things that he's gone through? Pretty publicly butting heads with Dana White. He went out and did a movie. Dana wasn't too happy about that, but he was kind of going outside the box to bring in more eyes to mixed martial arts. Well, what are your thoughts on Rampage and all the things that he's kind of gone through with the UFC?
Well, there's a perfect example. Me and Rampage were buddies. We were very, very close friends. And I sat down with him in the very, very beginning when he was in Pride. And I kind of talked to him about his image. Well, Rampage, you being the street guy is perfect. People are going to love you. They're going to hate you, but they're going to talk about you. You've got to do this. And he continued on doing it. When he did all the mainstream stuff that he did, being on A-Team, I couldn't be thankful enough for what he's done for this sport. And I look at a guy that has worked as hard as he has to come where he's came from. I love Rampage, man. I mean, he was a part of Team Punishment back in the day. You know, we trained together all the time. I mean, we sparred with each other all the time. It was just one of those things that I look at Rampage, and I'm very, very proud of him for what he stood for, what he stands for, and what he's been doing so far. You know, he's had a little mistakes, and it's a challenge for, as a human, for all of us to feel what success feels like, to feel what a championship feels like, and then all of a sudden it's all taken away from you. There's some that fold. There's some that are tested from it. There's some that break and quit, and there's some that thrive and strive to be the best. And some of us do, and some of us don't. And Rampage was a person to bounce back. You know, he went through a lot of challenging things personally, but he was able to bounce back and make something out of it. He did the 18. You know, he did some things that were really, really great. And I mean, like I said, I'm really, really proud of the guy, and I can't be more proud to call him my friend.
Now, I've been a broadcast journalist for 6 years now, and I've interviewed a lot of fighters, and it seems to me that at some certain points of their careers, when they are kind of virtual nobodies, they're willing to do as many interviews as possible. But then once they become superstars, all of a sudden they're no longer available. Who do you blame for that? Do you blame the fighter, or do you blame their management for making them unavailable?
I believe it's the fighter. Because the manager, I mean, you can understand, I was a guy who didn't have a manager. I mean, Dana White was my manager, and I fought for everything he taught me how to fight for. And then when we butt-headed against each other, it was what it was. I just believed what I believed in, and it was for my family. It was to take care of my family. But when it came down to interviews, I just took kind of a lesson from Bob Sapp's career that he had. It was a short career. He said, Tito, over the last year, I've made over $3 million. And this was back when fighters were making $200,000 a fight. He goes, I made over $3 million. I've never turned down one thing. If I have the opportunity to be shown on the biggest stage, I don't care how big I am. If I were to be shown on the big stage and be in everyone's eyes every single day, now I've become bigger than life. People want to see me. They want to watch. And I took that, I mean, this was 8 years ago. And I took it, I was like, wow. I became a world champion, and I was doing interviews. I was doing everything. I was doing stuff for MTV, going on tour with Korn, going on tour with Limp Bizkit. I mean, I did a lot of things, and I never turned down anything. I've always thought was, I'm trying to push my brand. I'm trying to make my brand of Tito Ortiz bigger than anything I possibly can think of. And my goal was to be a household name in mixed martial arts and in the world of sports. And I think if anybody says UFC, they automatically think of Tito Ortiz. And I think I try to build my brand of punishment, my brand of Tito Ortiz to this point where, you know, I'm being recognized as an icon in the sport, which is amazing. And I'm thankful for, you know, Dana and Lorenzo for giving me this opportunity to ride this to its fullest. And I look back on it, and the fighters, they need to think about that. They need to think about is what they want to do in 10 years. You know, when they become champion, well, you ain't going to be champion for too much longer. There's always going to be someone younger, stronger, works harder is going to come up and try to test you for that title. And I look at it, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to be fighting for 10 years. Okay, I got lucky with 15 myself, but there's other fighters maybe 10 years after they're lucky. And what are they going to do after? And I just put that in my mind is I got to work hard. I got to make my name a household name, and I got to prevail because my life is very short, and I got to make the best of this mixed martial arts world sport now because when I'm gone, what's going to happen? And I was able to do that. I was able to, you know, kind of correlate everything in my hard work and dedication into this stuff of becoming, you know, an icon of the sport. And I think I've really made hand over fist of everything I've done.